Hello, BookTube. Who's up for a morning mail haul? We've got a few packages here. None of them are very big. None of them are very huge. It's the March the 1st, so I'm on the lookout for boxes and huge manila envelopes because this is, among many, many, many other things, the month for March of the Mammoths. BookTube event that's dedicated to showing a little love to those extra freaking-enormous books in your collection. The ones that are not just over 500 pages, like in the beloved Tome Topple, but that are over 800 pages. Worlds unto themselves. Things that have their own gravitational field, their own atmosphere, their own moods. And I have quite a few of those books already, but I'm always in the mood for more, and there are some coming. There are 2 books in particular I know of coming in 2019 that are whoppers, absolute whoppers. In fact, sooner or later, some enterprise in BookTube is going to have to come up with an event that's even the step beyond Mammoths. The books that are over 1,000 pages, the ones that clock in 4 digits, deserve a term of their own, and there are a couple of those, at least a couple that I know of, that are coming out in 2019. Both of them look really good, so you will be hearing all about them on this channel. But even though none of these packages are really huge, you never know. You never know what might be in them that might be good. I don't want to open them by myself. That's why I have all of you here for. So let's do this first one here. I've got my assistant at the ready. What is this? It's from the Wethersfield Proctor Library in Vermont. Why would I want anything in the mail from that old dump? They've got cows in the back lot. Well, I suppose if they raided the petty cash to send it. But why? I send things to the Wethersfield Proctor Library. I don't get things in the mail from them. What is this? What could this be? Oh! Woo! Oh. I thought for a minute that Frida wasn't going to destroy the package. I thought for a minute she recognized where it comes from. She's rather fond of that little spot in Vermont. Oh boy, though. Okay. All right. Okay. These are from Mark Richardson, the head librarian and chief bottle washer at the Wethersfield Proctor Library, and he has absolutely spoiled me here. Not only did he send me 2 of the vintage, if you saw on his channel, he recently had a mega Conan find of Savage Sword of Conan, and also Conan Saga, which was a Savage Sword of Conan reprint comic that Marvel Comics licensed. These are from 50 years ago. They were Marvel's second Conan series. They had Conan the Barbarian, a 4-color comic book that they just inserted into their superhero line on drugstores and whatnot. Back when you could buy comic books anywhere instead of at specialty stores that exist to go out of business. But they also had a larger magazine that had a different market penetration. A lot of those same comic shops that sold Savage Sword of Conan, or Conan the Barbarian, didn't know that this existed or had no spot to sell it. It could often show up in the magazine section of department stores and bookstores. It was a whole different ballgame. And Mark recently was at one of the antique malls that litter Vermont, and he found a stash of Savage Sword of Conan and Conan Saga reprints. These things are actually quasi-collectible. I sent him some shameless emails just demanding that I wanted all of those things. I'm sure that some of you, quite a few by now, in 3 years, have probably received emails from me to that effect, simply demanding your property. I know, it's terrible, but you knew that when you married me. And he sent me 2 of that collection. Isn't that wonderful? So this is Savage Sword of Conan, number 66, a curiously static cover. Just a murder about to be committed. But this will probably have tons of great stuff in it. Oh my. I always myself go for the artwork. And as Savage Sword of Conan started off fantastic in terms of artwork. It was written by Roy Thomas. It was drawn by John Buscema. And John Buscema often had an array of inkers, including some who were absolutely terrific, including Rudy Nebris, who's never had the credit that he deserves. It was a fantastic embellisher, fantastic inker, but also a bunch of other people as well. This artist could be really detailed, but he could also just dash things off. His sense of composition was strong enough so that he could make a really strong issue without going into huge amounts of detail if he didn't feel like it or if he had other commitments. And when that happens, when you get an artist like that, a lot will depend on your inker. And a lot of times, if an artist is like that, and you are the writer, you will want to pair that artist with a workhorse inker, someone who will provide those details, who will shore up that composition. And unfortunately for me, just purely on aesthetic grounds, one of those inkers was Ernie Chan, who in the later issues of Savage Sword of Conan is very often the inker and is sometimes even just the artist. So I imagine that he will be the inker for a lot of this. But this is just wonderful. I have not read this issue since I bought it. I bought all of these Savage Sword of Conan. This would have been, when was this? 1981, when all the world made sense. And then this Conan Saga number 17, this will reprint other stuff too. But after a while, it got to the point where even Conan Saga was reprinting Buscema and Chan artwork. So you're just getting that solid. Although you'll notice the difference right away. One key difference right away. This is the great Earl Norham. This cover is the great Earl Norham, who never did, not just for Conan, but for anything, never did a cover that wasn't fantastic. There really ought to be. If the American art scene, especially popular art scene, weren't so incredibly snobbish, if it weren't so incredibly elitist, there would long since have been a large, beautifully complete art book of the art of Earl Norham. He deserves one. He's better by far than a lot of artists, quote unquote, who have received volumes like that. But there's never been one. I bet there never will be, aside from, really, really, really small scale specialty presses. And that's a terrible shame. It's a terrible shame if he just falls through the cracks. I mean, America is like that. You name a popular artist, and they all have to go through the gauntlet until they started producing crap. Because when you get an artist like Andy Warhol or Rothko or someone like that, or Cy Twombly, who produces obvious, visually obvious, directly, immediately obvious garbage that you could do yourself if you had, their equipment but no talent, because they don't have any talent either. When you get artists who are doing that, it feeds into the snobbishness of the art world, because they can look at something that their eyes are telling them correctly is crap, and then apply a varnish of snobbishness and say, well, to the unsophisticated eye, this is mere gibberish. But you must have a sophisticated eye, I'm sure. I'm sure that you would be willing to pay $3.1 million for this canvas with a blue dot on it. I'm sure that you would be willing. You must recognize it for what it is. You're one of us, not one of them. And the American art scene is still like that. It drives me crazy. Look how long it took for there to be even one museum retrospective on one of the greatest American artists of all time, Norman Rockwell. And when I say that name, when I say that juxtaposition, one of the greatest American artists of all time, Norman Rockwell, you have been so poisoned by the snobbishness of the art world that you object. A part of you objects. When it isn't true, you can look at Norman Rockwell's artwork and see that's fantastic. It challenged me, it moved me, it satisfied me. I couldn't possibly do it myself. Well, actually, I was going to say, Mark probably didn't expect that 2 mere issues of Conan would spark a long rant, but then again, he's had me as a house guest, so he might well have expected that. But he also, not only did he send me Conan, but he also sent me a true treat. A true treat. You're not going to think of it as a treat, but nevertheless. This is the Wethersfield Proctor Library newsletter. With the typeface and the fold. This is a quintessential small town local library newsletter, and the reason that he sent me copies of it, I think we shall see. I think we shall see the reason why. Yes, yes. Oh my! Oh goodness gracious! Okay, this new issue of the Wethersfield Proctor Library newsletter has a statement from the library director, Mark Richardson, but then the whole of the newsletter is one particularly obnoxious Wethersfield Proctor Library patron gassing on about bunches of new books. Just over and over, page after page after page of him gassing on, and that reader, or that patron, of course, is me. Wow. Oh, my. Oh, that is incredible. Wow. I'm called a local reader. Oh, my. Okay, well, I'm glad to have copies of this. That's fantastic. All right, so that's a fine way to start a mail haul. Those Conans are going right to the front of the list. But that's not the only thing we have here. Let's not be. I got Conan in the first package. I got Conan and me. That's tough for any egotist to get overcome. Let's try. Let's move on. Ooh. What is this next one? Okay. I don't know this at all. This is... okay, this is called Lucy Negro Redux. The Bard, a Book, and a Ballet. That is all sorts of doodles making a ballet dancer. This book uses the lens of Shakespeare's Dark Lady sonnets to explore the way questions about the desire for the black female body have evolved over time, from Elizabethan England to Jim Crow South to the present day. Equally interested in the sensual and the serious, the erotic and the academic, this collection experiments with form, dialect, persona, and voice. Ultimately a hybrid document, Lucy Negro Redux harnesses blues poetry, deconstructed sonnets, historical documents, lyric essays to tell a challenging, many-faceted story of the Dark Lady, her Shakespeare, and their real and imagined milieu. Okay. And this is by Carolyn Randall Williams, who is a multi-genre writer and educator in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, she's an educator in Nashville, Tennessee, and she has based part of this book on a fanciful premise. Let's put it that way. Of course, the Dark Lady in Shakespeare's sonnets was not dark-skinned. That we don't know much about her, but we can know for sure that she was not dark-skinned. So, you know, you're taking that word dark and you're stretching it over terrain where it was never meant to go. But if you do that, it sounds like this is a really inventive way to approach that whole subject. So probably, I mean, almost certainly the author knows that. So it sounds like the fanciful stretching is going to be part of this whole project. Sounds fascinating. It sounds fascinating. I love it. Did I mention? Okay, this came out in early February, so it's a little late getting to me. I am swamped with marked books, but I don't think I can pass this up. One of the things I love about projects like this, where even a brief description like the one we just heard seems strange, seems just not anything you've ever heard before. One of the things I love about projects like this is that when they're like that, they are usually passion projects, and I love author passion projects, even when they drive me crazy, even when they fail, which most of them do, for fairly obvious reasons of discipline and foresight. Even when they fail, I still love them, and this seems like it could be an author passion project. I'm right on board. All right, let's continue here. Let's move on. What's next here? Do you want this, baby bean? Oh no, you're busy chewing on something else. All right, so okay. All right, this is another book I did not request. This is a finished copy from Counterpoint. Comes out in early April. It's called Prince of Monkeys by Nnamdi Ehirim. It's kind of an eye-catching cover. Prince of Monkeys. Oh, it's a debut novel. Okay, great. A provocative debut novel by a brilliant young Nigerian writer tackling politics, class, spirituality, and power as a group of friends come of age in Lagos. And the author is a 26-year-old Nigerian writer based in Lagos and Madrid. His writing has appeared in Afrida, Brittle Paper, Catapult, Kalahari Review, and The Republic. He co-founded a clean energy startup in Nigeria and is currently pursuing an MBA focused on entrepreneurship in the renewable energy sector. And Prince of Monkeys is his first novel. I don't know where he finds the time. The renewable energy is a booming field in Africa, and he's got a company of his own to run. But anyway, what do we got here? Growing up in middle-aged Lagos, Nigeria, during the 1980s and early 90s, Iheki, I-H-E-C-H-I, I'm not 100% sure if I remember whether that C-H is pronounced with a K or C-H, forms a band of close friends discovering Lagos together as teenagers with differing opinions on everything from film to football. Fela Kuti is to spirituality, sex to politics. They remain close-knit until tragedy unfolds during an anti-government riot. Exiled from Lagos by his concerned mother, Ihekti moves in with his uncle's family where he struggles to find himself outside his former circle of friends. He eventually finds success by leveraging his connection with a notorious prostitution linchpin and political heavyweight, earning favor among the ruling elite. But just as he is about to make his financial ascent into the elite political class, he reunites with his childhood friends and experiences a crisis of conscience that forces him to question his world, his motives, and who he should become. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is due in early April. Fairly ambitious sounding debut novel by a very young Nigerian writer. Okay, so the whole question now, I mean, the premise is rock solid, and the author's bio note intrigues me, which is, beside the point, but still. So the whole question now will be the writing, but we shall see. All right, what this is unpredictable. I know I say this about all my mail hauls, but this is fairly unpredictable. This is a strange plot we've got. Let's see what this next one is. Fairly small, so probably not something that I requested. Let's see what we have here. Okay, all right. This is another thing I did not request. This is due in late March, and it is, I think we saw this already. This is the finished copy of the Yale Younger Poets series, The Year of Blue Water by Yan Yi. In a finished copy. Yale does this. They have a series for younger poets. I think we might already have seen this. His arresting and straightforward poems weave experiences of immigration as a Chinese American, of racism, of mental wellness, and of gender from a queer and trans perspective. Between the contrast of high lyric and direct prose poems, Yan Yi invites the reader to consider how to speak with multiple identities through trauma, transition, and ordinary life. Okay. It doesn't sound like I am its intended target audience, since I think if you have multiple identities, you need serious treatment, serious medical treatment. Every person has one identity, but I'll give it a try anyway, especially since we in this. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not seeing any poetry. These are just paragraphs. These are just paragraphs, page after page of paragraphs. See that? Those are paragraphs. In English, those are paragraphs. That's not verse. There's a poem. But we shall see. It's being billed anyway as a slim volume of poetry, and we're not averse to those on this channel anymore. So I will give it a try. But boy, I was right about the lack of Steve books here. Closest thing we've come. I had to go and write myself. Let's see if we can turn that pattern around. What is this next one? Oh God, help us. Okay. All right. Well, this is a Steve book, but only in the obverse side of the coin. You all know by now this horrible death grip that I have. You've been watching all of these videos. You know there's a long list. There is a thing. There is a Venn diagram of certain books. My bookish friends have been saying this since longer than most of you have been alive. Where they go into a bookstore long before the internet exists, and they would point to something and say, "That's a Steve book," or I would work in a newsroom, excuse me, or at the bookstore, and the book would come in, and people who had been around me for a while would say, "Ah, that's a Steve book." They didn't say about everything, even though I read everything, because there's a certain Venn diagram of a kind of book that is definitely a Steve book, something he's going to want to read, he's going to have opinions about it, he's going to read, he will have read everything about it before, all previous books. And usually you associate Steve books with the stuff I love. Popularly reduced by my more waggish friends to dogs, dead Kennedys, and dead Romans. It's not just that, but that's the joke when the wine is flowing. But there's also another side to that coin. There are also Steve books that are subjects and sort of a Venn diagram thing that I hate. I'm never going to miss a book about them, but it's because I hate them. And this is one of them. This is Christian Keller. It's called The Great Partnership, and it's Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, and the Fate of the Confederacy. And you can tell right from the cover what kind of treatment you're going to get here. The only thing that those two men are whispering to each other in this touching southern mist-enshrouded morning moment is, very quietly, Robert E. Lee saying, "Do you beat your slaves in the face or only on the body?" And Stonewall Jackson saying, "Sometimes I beat them in the face until they die." That's all that these two rotten individuals ever had to talk about. It isn't the soft focus, merchant ivory, heavily Southern Christian understanding that folklore has always imbued this whole thing to. You are leading battlefield generals in defense of a slaveocracy. There's nothing romantic about you at all. And that's just the cover. All right, so how about we break with precedent and maybe give the book a fair shake? Shall we do that? All right, so you can see what I mean, though. Friends of mine will roll their eyes. You go to the Strand bookstore. I want to go to the Strand bookstore, every single one of you, but most of you I have never met. And you certainly haven't known me outside of BookTube. Unlike with a lot of other BookTube channels, what you see on this channel is what you get. Unfortunately, I am just as tedious in person as I am on camera. But nevertheless, you've not done that for a long amount of time. If one of you who's barely had any acquaintance with me at all were to go to the Strand bookstore in New York City with someone who's known me for a long time, you would watch them roll their eyes. They could go through the tables and say, "Oh, he's not going to have any reaction to that at all. He's not going to care about that at all. Oh, that's a Steve book. Don't get him started." But let's try to hear out the author, or the pub sheet anyway. Why were Generals Lee and Jackson so successful in their partnership in trying to win the war for the South? What was it about their styles, friendship, and even their faith? Didn't I mention that a gauzy early morning mint julep Christianity would creep its way into this crap? That cemented them together into a fighting machine that consistently won despite overwhelming odds against them. I hate this. This is another part of the Confederacy myth. Lee was a competent general. Jackson was totally incompetent. And the only reason why, what did it say again? Consistently won despite overwhelming odds against them is because they faced worse generals, much worse generals. A borderline competent general, a general as competent as General Lee, facing him with the advantages of the Northern Army, would have annihilated him on the first encounter. And that causes Southern romanticists to just howl in outrage. No, that cannot be true. But it is true. It is true. If I don't even know, I'd pick a competent battlefield general who didn't get to command troops. Winfield Scott. If Winfield Scott, at age 25, 35, 45, had command of a Northern Army and faced General Lee at any point in the first 2 years of the American Civil War, the war would have ended. Lee's army would have been completely destroyed, and he would have been captured. And, if I'd had any say in the matter, hung by a stout rope from the highest branch of the tallest tree. Instead, they faced one bumbling nincompoop after another. Some of them converted politicians, for God's sake. You want Chris Christie leading a battle at Antietam? Anyway, let's move on. This is bad. All right. Composure. I know you're all saying, we have composure. You're the one who's losing your cookies. Christian Keller's The Great Partnership has the power to change how we think about the Confederate strategic decision-making and the value of personal relationships among senior leaders responsible for organizational survival. Those relationships in the Confederate High Command were particularly critical for victory, especially the one that existed between the two great Army of Northern Virginia generals. It has been over 2 decades since any author attempted a joint study of the two generals. At the very least, the book will inspire a very lively debate among the thousands of students of the Civil War history. At best, it will significantly revise how we reevaluate Confederate strategy during the height of the war and our understanding of why, in the end, the South lost. Okay. According to the arch traitor, Jefferson Davis, if you believe what he said about the war from the beginning, in fact, long before the war started, if you believe what he said about what was at stake and what was happening in the American Civil War, if you take him at his word, then the reason the South lost is very simple, because God wanted them to lose. The arch traitor Jefferson Davis said from long before the first shots at Fort Sumter that God would determine the righteousness of this cause. Okay, you lost really badly. If I had had any say in the matter, I wrote my letters to my senator in Massachusetts. They were ignored. If I'd had any say in the matter, every single person, every single male anywhere in the Confederacy who was of arms-bearing age would have been summarily put to death, and the ground everywhere, from Virginia all the way to the Florida Keys, would have been salted so that it was barren forever. I didn't have my way, but I wonder why. But nevertheless, that is Jefferson Davis's reason, whether he has to believe it or not. Typical slipperiness of oily Christian apologeticists like him. He didn't ever come to believe it. He didn't ever actually sit down and say, well, okay then, by my own reasoning, I must have been evil. None of them did. But the linchpin here, the straw man in this pub sheet, is that Lee and Jackson had a great personal relationship. They didn't. Lee thought Jackson wasn't crazy. And the reason that Lee thought Jackson was crazy is because Jackson was crazy. Completely crazy. Don't know where I am or what time of day it is, crazy. Might fight my own men, crazy. Jackson was simply crazy. And Lee knew that. Lee might have been many detestable things, but he wasn't insane. So they didn't have this kind of touching, do you beat your slaves in the face moment. He didn't have, this is a fantasy. Lee was an extremely cold commander. He had no close personal relationships with anybody, even his own children on his staff. And Jackson, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, might not have recognized Robert E. Lee. This is all fantasy. Anyway. All right. Okay. Let's get back to the book. Shall we? You're all saying, we never left the book. You're the one who keeps... All right. Composure. Okay. This comes out in early July. It comes out on July the 2nd. The true effrontery here would be if it came out on July the 4th, but it doesn't. Through some miracle, it doesn't. Instead, this comes out on July the 2nd. July the 2nd, when at Gettysburg, Lee, in his insanity, was just starting to realize what any general in his position should have realized years ago, which is that you cannot win a stand-up, straightforward, face-to-face, European-style fight with the North. You cannot do it. You have 30,000 men. He has 25,000 men. In the morning, you're going to have 25,000 men, and he's going to have 50,000 men. The morning after that, you're going to have 20,000 men. He's going to have 75,000 men. He's got a river at his back and an endless supply of material and personnel up that river. Endless. Literally endless. So standing here and fighting when your enemy has the high ground is insane. And it was on July the 2nd. I guess we better put this book away. Yes. Yeah, okay. All right. There are, as far as I know, there are two old friends of mine who watch this channel sporadically, sometimes regularly. And if they are watching now, they are definitely nodding their heads saying, oh yeah, that's a Steve book. Why do these people stick around? So let's just finish up. Let's just finish up. Let's just finish up. We have just one more package and then we'll be done. Oh God. Let's try to wrest this mail haul back onto the tracks. So what is this last one? Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. Fantastic. Okay, fantastic. This is also from Counterpoint. The same people that sent us the Nigerian novel. And this also comes out in early April. And I'm very happy to report that I think I will be reviewing this for... Okay, off the top of my head, I'm not remembering exactly who, but I think I have a commission for this for a very large audience, so that would be great. Not that I mind. I love writing things for Open Letters Review. There's the online literary journal where I'm one of the editors is Open Letters Review, and we're small, and we're online, and we're free to anybody, and we rely for our audience building on putting our links, our pieces on social media, putting them in people's feeds, putting them under their eyes. That's how we get our readers, because we can't really expect that 100,000 people are going to show up on the website. I don't know that we'd have any way to calculate that anyway. And I love doing it. There is no substitute for having your own venue. It's very frustrating, I know, because for a long time there was no internet, and I didn't have my own venue. And when you're a freelance reviewer and you don't have your own venue, you're at the mercy of your commissioning editors. You might get a book and really want to write about it and just have nobody take it. Having your own venue is a very good thing when that happens, especially if you're me, because I read a lot. I read a lot. And I have formulated opinions on almost everything that I read. It's not like I need to work up a review. I have lots of reviewing colleagues who need to quote unquote work up a review. I don't need to do that. I just need a computer in front of me. But I think I am reviewing this for somebody, for a sizable audience, much bigger than Open Letters Review. And this is by Stuart Kells, and it is Shakespeare's Library. And the subtitle is Unlocking the Greatest Mystery in Literature. And if you think about it, that really is true. Because from what we know about Shakespeare is almost nothing in terms of his intellectual formulation. We know more about his later career, but how he learned the things that he learned, we have no idea. We are reduced to supposition. We have no records from any school that he went to, and we have certainly no direct documentary evidence of any library or collection of books that he ever had access to. His own library does not exist, as far as we know. You would think a very popular and prosperous literary person on his death would bequeath a library, but that didn't happen. So, and there are all sorts of references and quotes in Shakespeare's plays to translations of works from either the Italian Renaissance or from the classical world into languages other than English that had not had English language translations when those plays appeared. So Shakespeare's library had to have been monolingual or multilingual. It had to have been something, in other words. And yet, so anyway, let's see what we have here. Millions of words of scholarship have been expended on the world's most famous author and his work, and yet a critical part of the puzzle, Shakespeare's library, is a mystery. For 4 centuries, people have searched for it in mansions, palaces, libraries, in riverbeds. Very famously, a riverbed, somebody thought they saw an acrostic, thought that if you dam the river and dig up the riverbed, you will find a sealed safe with, it didn't happen. Sheep pens and partridge coops in the corridors of the mind. Yet no trace of the bard's manuscripts, books, or letters has ever been found. The search for Shakespeare's library is much more than a treasure hunt. Knowing what the bard read informs our reading of his work, and it offers insight into the mythos of Shakespeare and the debate around authorship. And that last line is crucial, because the most Occam's razor sanctioned reading of the fact that we have never found any hint of a library for Shakespeare. The reason why that is true, that is most honored by Occam's razor, is that Shakespeare didn't have a library. And if Shakespeare didn't have a library, he could not have written his own plays. If the library that we're looking for belongs to someone else, then anyway, I don't want to quite down that rabbit hole yet. The library's fate has profound implications for literature, for national and cultural identity, and for the global Shakespeare industry. It bears on fundamental principles of art, identity, history, meaning, and truth. Okay, Seymour, settle down. It's Shakespeare's library. Okay, right now at this moment, the city of Boston has 120 Russian nukes pointed at it. So let's settle down a little. Okay, unfolding the search like a mystery that it is. Acclaimed author Stuart Kells follows the trail of the hunters, taking us through different conceptions of the library and the man himself. Okay, so in addition to expounding on, what this library would have to be, what traces we can find of it in Shakespeare's work, he's also going to tell a lot of the great stories, including the digging up of a riverbed. That's good. That'll be fun in its own right. And who is Stuart Kells when he's at home? He's an author and historian. His history of Penguin books, Penguin and the Lane Brothers, won the prestigious Ashurst Business Literature Prize. And his book, The Library, A Catalogue of Wonders, was shortlisted for the New South Wales Premier's General History Prize and has been published around the world in multiple languages. And if I remember correctly, I reviewed The Library, A Catalogue of Wonders for somebody. I'm not quite sure who, but if I remember correctly, I did review that book and I loved it. And I remember when I was researching that book, I came across mention of Penguin and the Lane Brothers, a history of Penguin books that never had a U.S. publication that I know of. And I have never come across a copy of the UK edition at the Brattle Bookshop or anywhere else. Probably the biggest white whale in my literary ocean. A book that I absolutely should read. I should know it by heart. A book about the founding of Penguin Books, and yet I have never seen it. So I'll have to see. Maybe Counterpoint can get their sticky fingers on a copy for me. That would be nice. All right, so anyway, this comes out in early April. This is an April book that I will be reviewing, not for open letters, but for, properly behind a paywall. So there you go. That is oh God, will you look at this? Look at that. But is she going to clean it up? No. And am I going to get an original reason why not? No, it's going to be the same old dog stuff. I don't have opposable thumbs. Anyway, let's just go through this hideously engorged mail. It was General Lee that threw us off. So we have Shakespeare's Library, a classic Steve book, in the good sense of the word. And then The Great Partnership, which is a classic Steve book in the bad sense of the term. My old friends would look at both of these and say, they're both Steve books, but don't get him started on this one. Then we have A Young Poet, The Year of Blue Water by Yan Yi. We have a debut novel from a Nigerian entrepreneur at age 26, Prince of Monkeys. We have a strange authorial passion project, I suspect, Lucy Negro Redux, told in multiple formats. And then we have 2 issues of the old Savage Sword of Conan sent to me by Mark at Richardson Reads. Thank you very much, Mark. And also the gem of the day, the Wethersfield Proctor Library newsletter, the huge bulk of which is written by yours truly, all about the new releases that the library has. So that wasn't a bad way to start a mail haul. So I'm going to go clean up now and calm down as well. But I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.